In parts 1 through 3 of this video series, we caught up with Dr. Andy Christensen and took a look at some original Prescott Culture examples. I also showed how to dig and process clay, and then I showed you how to process an organic pigment. Moving on forward, I'll take you step by step in how to construct the vessel. I'll show you how to decorate it, and then finally, I'll catch up with Kiowa Sage and we'll fire the pots. Now I'm here at a very important location. This is a pre-classic period Prescott Culture site that was occupied about 1,000 years ago. We have many unique features. Off to my left, there is what appears to be a centrally located platform mound. There's pit houses surrounding the area, trash bins scattered in between, and then field houses off to the north. We also find a heavy concentration of decorated ceramics. We find trade wares from the northern Sinawa groups and then trade wares from the southern Hohokam groups. And remember, folks, it's not necessarily the vessel itself that was important. It was what's inside that carried such significance. So with red on buff pottery, it's my belief that the Hohokam did not travel up into central Arizona in the Prescott region to trade. The Prescott culture traveled into Phoenix, what is now Phoenix, and gathered at these open marketplaces where ball games were once held and exchanged goods with the Hohokam, or even bought the pot itself with maybe shell or argillite currency. We also find heavy amounts of decorated black on gray wares. And that's significant because that tells me one of two things. Either the Prescott culture manufactured it here and then distributed it out, or it was imported in. Now, I tend to say that it was actually imported in. Why? Because of this platform mound we have. Platform mounds are signs of significance. It's a sign of a powerful and high-ranking individual, whether he is the person is of elite status or spiritual power. Either way, we know that it carries significance and high ranking amongst an individual. So yeah, this is a very important site. Like I said, we have a lot of black on gray pottery, and it's absolutely worth mentioning. So without further ado, we'll get into this part of the video series, and I'll show you exactly how to construct the vessel. So first I'll cover my toolkit, and this is quite common amongst most potters, especially in larger vessels. So I have my form pot or my mold pot. This is fired in reduction, so I have a nice black on gray interior. An old cotton t-shirt I'll drape over the form pot. Stone anvil, 2 smoothing stones, a gourd scraper, a trimming tool, and finally my cottonwood paddle. Nothing too complex, just a very basic and easy toolkit. So the first thing I do is take this cotton cloth and I drape it over this form pot. I'll just tuck it into the opening and flip it upside down. I try to pull this material as tight as possible, although as this goes by it kind of loosens up, and that's okay. Okay. I keep my clay inside of a trash bag. It keeps the moisture locked in and it doesn't dry. I start off with a good sized clump, maybe a little bit more. And I'm going to create what looks like a hockey puck, and then I'll form that into a tortilla shape. I'll drape it over the bottom of this pot and onto this cotton material, and we will begin paddling. So we start off with a ball, and then I just press it down, like I said, into a hockey puck shape. Now we'll flatten it out like a tortilla, and the bottom of the pot should be the thickest part because it carries the most weight. All I'm doing is paddling clay down from this top and thinning out these walls. Some areas are a little bit thicker, whereas others are thinner. And I just thin out the clay, like I mentioned, on these walls. And some of the parts that sag down lower into the vessel, I'll just trim those. You can trim them with a knife or a piece of obsidian, flint, chert, it doesn't matter. Usually by now in the summertime, I'd be going through a lot more water than I'm using right now, trust me. But as the paddle starts to stick to the clay, you want to use more water. That's a nice thing about making pottery during these cooler fall months is the clay doesn't dry up as fast. Now the top is smooth, so once again I take my trimming tool and I just clean up some of these low spots. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, I roll out a coil. And we'll just wrap it around the bottom. So I wrap it around like that, and I just push it up. So I'm pushing the clay up onto the walls, or what we have already worked with. So this clay is still a little bit wet. I can feel it. It's kind of sticky, but that's okay. It'll still work. I wouldn't want it any wetter than this. Okay. And we'll do the same around this side here. Now Prescott Culture, in their pottery, yeah, there's quite a bit of mica, or in their decorated wares, they're black on gray. But I gotta tell you, Hohokam wares are heavily micaceous. Hohokam added a lot of mica into their pots. And that's kind of, well, that is what I'm working on right now in archaeology, is cleaning, sorting, cataloging, and tagging recovered sherds from a project that I'm on in Phoenix. So I've seen a lot of Hohokam wares, and I gotta tell you, it's glittery. That's how much mica they put into it. The entire surface is just covered in a lot of sherds, a lot of them, even plain wares. Okay, so we have this coiled all the way around, and what I'm doing is I'm just working this clay down into, once again, the side walls of this form pot. As it starts to stick, more water. Okay, so you can see we hit the end of this form pot, and at this point I need to let it sit and cure for about 30 to 35 minutes. In the summertime, when it's a lot hotter and drier, we're looking about 10 to 15 minutes. But once again, with these cooler temperatures, 30 to 35 minutes. If I take this bowl off of the form pot right now, what ends up happening is the clay will fold out. And we don't want that. Once again, there's a lot of moisture in this clay right now. We need to let it firm up a bit before I take it off and put it onto the pookie. So the waiting game begins. About 35 minutes, I'll be right back with you. It's looking good. Well, the clay has been sitting on this form for about 40 minutes, so it's at the point where I can take this off and begin to finish the vessel. So all I do is just take out or remove from the inside of the form vessel, the cotton material, and I pull the form pot out first. And this can be a little bit tricky because you're pretty much shaping it the exact shape as that. So, okay, now I just tuck this back in and I'll carefully pull it out. And that is looking good. You can see I do have some high spots, and that's okay. I can work those out. And you'll also see on the inside there's impressions from the ripples on the cotton cloth. Once again, we can scrape those out. Okay, now we are, like I said, ready to coil once again. We'll probably, I don't know, 2 coils. We'll see. So I pinch this rim all the way around. And this is where things get a little bit tricky with pottery making. Paddling it on the form pot is the easy part. I just take a little bit of clay and we'll roll out a coil and set it directly on top. Okay. So I wrap it around and I push the clay down from about the midway point of the coil into the sidewall on both sides, on the interior and the exterior of the pot. All right, should be good. And now we can paddle. Like I said, it's way too thick. If I left the pot as it would be right now, I gotta tell you, it would look nasty.